Most products are just, well, they're just things, right? You buy them, you use them, and eventually you replace them. But every now and then, something comes along that's just different. It becomes way more than what it was made for. It turns into a symbol, a piece of culture, a real legend. And today, we're going to get under the hood of one of the biggest legends out there, the Ford Mustang. So check out this number, 418,812. That's not just some random statistic. That is an all-time record. It's the number of Mustangs Ford sold in its very first year. I mean, to give you some perspective, that was the biggest new car launch since the Model A, way back in 1927. So yeah, this wasn't just a successful car, it was a full-blown phenomenon. So that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How does a car do that? How does it become a cultural icon pretty much overnight? Well, I'll tell you, it wasn't just a fluke. It was this perfect storm of the right time, the right strategy, and of course, the right design. And that's exactly what we're going to dig into right now, how Ford basically managed to capture lightning in a bottle. To really get the Mustang, you gotta picture the world it rolled into. We're talking the early 1960s, a time of huge change. The baby boomers were growing up, and believe me, they were a whole new kind of customer. Yeah, the old rules just didn't work anymore. This new generation, they had zero interest in their parents' big, boring family sedan. Plus, you had the number of two-car families just exploding. So people were starting to want something for themselves, something personal, something with a little bit of flair, a little bit of sportiness. And Ford's top guy at the time, the legendary Lee Iacocca, he saw this massive hole in the market and knew Ford had to be the one to fill it. So Iacocca gets this team together, they call it the Fairlane Committee, and they cook up this formula that was just genius in its simplicity. Okay, so rule 1, the car had to be short, under 180 inches. Rule 2, it had to be light, under 2,500 pounds. And the big one, rule 3, it had to be cheap, priced under 2,500 bucks. But here's the key thing to remember. They weren't just building a car, they were building a dream that you could actually afford. And boom, there's the number that made it all happen, $2,368. They nailed their price target. And because of that, the Mustang wasn't some exclusive car for the rich. It was for everybody. For the very first time, you didn't need a ton of money to own a car that looked like $1 million and was an absolute blast to drive. This was style for the people. So Ford has the perfect car at the perfect price. What next? Well, they roll out one of the most brilliant product launches ever. And the results? It wasn't just a home run, it was an absolute stampede. I mean, the scale of this launch was just nuts. Unprecedented. The night before the official debut, Ford bought ad time on all 3 major TV networks at the same time. They reached something like 95% of all American homes with a TV. The next day, April 17, 1964, it officially debuts at the New York World's Fair. And the public just went crazy for it. On day 1 alone, they took 22,000 orders. Dealers were completely swamped. There are stories of cars being sold to the highest bidder right there on the showroom floor because demand was just that insane. And this right here is where you see the Mustang's real lasting impact. It didn't just sell a bunch of units, no, it created a whole new class of car. They called it the pony car. Affordable, compact, super stylish with a sporty vibe. And almost immediately, all the other car companies were scrambling to build their own version. That's where you get iconic rivals like the Chevy Camaro, the Pontiac Firebird, and the Dodge Challenger. The Mustang literally started a stampede. Now, you'd think after that kind of success, Ford might just sit back and relax, but nope. They kept tweaking it, making small but really important changes every single year to keep things fresh. Let's take a look at just how fast this car evolved in its first 3 years. Okay, so this is kind of like a fun game of spot the difference for Mustang fans. Take a look at the side scoop. In 65, you've got that one deep single scoop. A year later, in 66, that's gone, replaced by these 3 horizontal chrome bars. Then for 67, it changes again to these 2 simulated scoops. Or how about the grille? The 65 has that classic corral around the pony, but in 66, they took out the vertical bars for a cleaner look. And even the dash changed. The standard 65 model had a basic rectangular speedometer, borrowed from the Falcon to save money. But by 66, that awesome 5-dial round gauge cluster became standard. It's these little details that kept the car exciting and are now super important for anyone trying to restore one today. But the 67 redesign, that was way more than just a facelift. This was the first major change. The car actually got bigger, a little wider, a little heavier. And you might be asking, why mess with a winning formula? Well, the answer is simple: more power. The real reason for the bigger body wasn't just for looks, it was to make room for a bigger heart. Specifically, to cram Ford's massive 390 big block V8 under the hood. The pony car was officially growing up into a full-on muscle car. All right, on to section 4, the Shelby transformation. So if the big block engine made the Mustang a muscle car, it was a legendary racer from Texas named Carroll Shelby who turned it into a fire-breathing, world-class race car. The Shelby Mustangs are the absolute top of the food chain, but what's really cool is how they changed over just a couple of years. The first one, the 1965 GT350, was a pure racer. I mean, it was basically a race car with license plates, built specifically to go out and win SCCA races. It was raw, it was loud, they even ripped out the backseat to make it lighter. But fast forward to 1967 and the GT500, that was a totally different animal. It wasn't a racer, it was a brawler. It was a high-performance street machine with a monster 428 V8, a more comfortable ride, and a super aggressive look that was all about owning the stoplight Grand Prix. And you don't have to take my word for it. Check out this quote from Car and Driver back in 1965. They said, "The Mustang GT350 is, if nothing else, certainly the most sporting street machine we have driven in a long while." They basically said it was loud, it was rough, and it was an absolute thrill. It was the real deal, no question about it. Okay, last section, an enduring legacy. So here we are. Decades later, why are people still so obsessed with this car? What is it that makes them pour so much time, money, and passion into these machines? Well, I think the Mustang's legacy is so strong because it was never just a car. It was an idea. It was affordable, you could customize it to be uniquely yours, and more than anything, it stood for freedom and being an individual. That whole vibe created this huge, diehard community of fans that honestly is stronger than ever today thanks to the internet. And this quote right here, it says it all. This isn't from some official Ford document. This is a post from a guy named Pete on a Mustang forum back in 2012. He's asking other owners to help him build a definitive color chart for the interior parts of a '66 Mustang. Just think about that level of detail. It's that kind of passion, that community spirit that keeps this whole world turning. So when you step back and look at the big picture, what happened in just those first 3 years is just mind-blowing. In that short time, the Mustang literally created the pony car segment. It proved that you didn't have to be rich to have a cool, fast car. It went from a stylish commuter car to a legit track weapon, and then morphed into a big block muscle car. It became a legend not by staying still, but by changing the game over and over again. And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. A legend that was really forged in just 3 years. The Mustang wasn't just a cool design. It was the perfect product for the perfect audience at the absolute perfect moment in time. It makes you wonder, what does it take to create the next icon? And what do you think it'll be?